6 o'clock. Are we good to get started? Yes? Okay. All right. Good evening. My name is Daniel Smith, and I am proud to serve as your superintendent here in Stafford County Public Schools. Thank you to those folks that have come out tonight, and thank you to those that are online, that are watching this online as we stream it. This evening, as we talk about the CIP, the Capital Improvement Plan for FY27 through FY36, 10-year capital improvement plan. Really, this is a town hall to get your feedback, and so we're excited to present tonight and answer some questions and collect feedback around our capital improvement plan. Before we get started, I do want to just acknowledge and thank, I know we have several of our school board members in our audience, so I see Dr. Warner, Dr. Chase, Ms. Healy, Ms. Sigmund are all here, so thank you for your support in being here tonight. And so let me just talk a little bit about what we're up to tonight and what the format's going to look like. So again, we are going to be talking about our 10-year capital improvement plan and really all that goes into that. We do this every single year in that we update this plan to reflect our current needs, where we are, and what that 10-year forecast might look like in terms of our capital improvement plan. Our school board, and you'll see the dates here as we go through the presentation, we'll be taking a look at this even further. We've had a couple work sessions already. They'll continue to have a few more work sessions. Once our school board approves it, then it will go over to our Board of Supervisors later in January, and then for supervisor approval later in the spring. And so, again, really excited about the feedback tonight. Thank you for being here. We are going to, as we talk through tonight, Jason Towery, our Chief Facilities Officer, is going to present. He is our subject matter expert here in terms of our CIP. And so he's going to present and talk through some of the projects and some of the pieces within our CIP. Then what we'll do is we have, for the past week, we've had an open portal for questions that might want to come in around our CIP. And so thank you to all those folks that have submitted questions. We have taken those questions and we have put those together. We've really tried to combine those that have common questions, patterns, themes, and so we'll be answering those questions after the presentation. And then if there's time at the end, we do have a QR code here along with a website that you can go to if you'd like to submit questions, live questions during the presentation. If there's time at the end, we will pull up a couple of those questions and answers the questions that we have in the time that we have. We are here from 6 to 7 o'clock. We do have an hour allocated for this and appreciate everyone giving their time here with us. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Jason Towery, our Chief Facilities Officer, to talk us through the presentation tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Smith. Good evening. Very excited to be here tonight. Thank you all for coming out and joining us, and for those who are online watching, appreciate it. Hopefully this is an informative time here for you, and look forward to presenting what we're doing in our capital improvement plan. I also just wanted to take a moment and acknowledge Matt Townsend, who's here with us tonight in the audience. Matt is our Assistant Director for Facilities Capital Planning. He is a lot of the brain behind the CIP. The other half of the brain is Lionel White, our Director of Planning and GIS, who does all the regular demography and planning for our school system and puts together the enrollment accommodation plan, which is really kind of a lot of the back end that feeds in data that feeds into our CIP and helps us understand what we need to be doing around the division. First off, I'd like to start off with a few construction updates. Some of our active projects. We are very fortunate here in Stafford to have the partnership with the community where we are currently under construction for 3 new schools. The first one I'll talk about here is Hartwood High School. You have to apologize, sometimes I'm still wanting to say High School 6, but as of just a few weeks ago, it is now officially Hartwood High School, the home of the Stallions. You can see there that their colors are black, gold, and silver, so we're very excited for that. The school is on time and on budget. That's the big news that everybody always wants to hear, and we're doing very well out there on the site. A couple pictures there that you can see on the screen with the new school building there. Just a few hundred square feet, under 300,000 square foot, making it not the largest, but the second largest building in our entire facility assets. North Stafford is still the largest at just about 305,000 square foot, but really some great space here for our students. $183 million budget. We're actually doing very well within the budget, coming in so far very well under budget, so we're excited for that. Opening in August of 2026, if you go inside the school now, there's drywall up, there's painting, some of the floors already starting to show up. We were fortunate to be able to put some terrazzo floors in that building, which is really a great long-term product for us. And then we are in the middle of beginning to order furniture. So you know when you're starting to order furniture, that's an exciting point in time. So the second facility that we're currently have under construction, also to open in August of 2026, is Falls Run Elementary School. This is the Foxhounds. Go Foxhounds, purple, navy blue, right? Navy blue, and gold, lime, no, gold. And lime is on the next one. Slightly smaller budget there, $65.9 million. This school is right next door to the High School 6 project. So if you're in South Stafford, traveling along Truslow Road, and you look to your left as you're heading westbound, just after you go past Cardinal Forest, you'll see the two new schools being constructed, along with a new road, connector road, that we're building called Stafford Plaza Drive that will go between Truslow Road and Route 17. We're also constructing a bus storage lot that coincides with this facility because all schools need buses, and we need places to park those buses. So the building is under roof, being dried in, so that's a really good stage to be at, and we're also getting ready to start ordering furniture for that here. And then finally, our third one that we have under construction, Crow's Nest Elementary School. This one is right next to the Brook Point High School. It's on the same shared campus with Brook Point High School. It is the second of our prototype schools. So although you can't quite see it yet, it has the exact same footprint as Falls Run Elementary. I almost called it 18. See how I did that? Falls Run Elementary. This is the Blue Jays, so go Blue Jays. So we've got here turquoise, blue, and lime. So quite a cool combination of colors. They're very excited. This one also is on time and within budget. We are right now, this one started about a month and a half, 2 months after the previous one. So that's why it doesn't look quite as far along, but we're making good progress there. Steel placement's underway. This summer we were able to redo all of the parking and circular roads around Brook Point High School. Got that in time, open in time for the school year. Again, opening in August of 26. Okay. We're also fortunate to be now approved for 2 replacement schools. Drew Middle School, originally built in 1952, Matt, is that right, 53? In the 1950s, it's been a while. Drew Middle School, which was originally built in the 1950s, has been approved for rebuild. The school board has selected a site called Oak Knoll Farm. It's off of Cliff Farm Road in the southern part of Stafford County, near Leland Station, if you're familiar with that area. Again, this one is to be open in August of 2028. We are hoping and planning to be able to break ground on this sometime late next summer, early fall, right after we finish opening up the 3 other schools. So again, this is the Drew Rams, if everybody's familiar. This will increase the capacity of that school up to almost 1,100 students in terms of the total capacity that the building can handle. A couple things that we have coming up on this. We are getting ready next week, next Wednesday. If you care to join us and support, come on out to the Planning Commission. I will be out there working with them on the comprehensive compliance plan review as well as the conditional use permit. And then a couple ancillary pieces to this, if you're familiar with the area. CSX is working on a 3rd rail alignment coming through this area. And so that we're working with them to make sure we're monitoring the timing of the bridge replacement as part of that 3rd rail that's coming online. They're replacing the bridge over Leland Road. So we're working with them on that to make sure that we are coordinated. And then finally, Hartwood Elementary School has been approved for rebuild. We were very excited about that last year. So we hit the ground running on this. This will be the third of 4 prototype schools. So again, the same footprint, building design, layout as Falls Run and as Crow's Nest Elementary. You can see the budget on this is a little bit larger because we have a little bit of escalation because we're a few years later now and prices tend to go up over time. The location that we have selected for this is the Westlake subdivision. So if you're out off Route 17, heading out towards the existing Hartwood Elementary School, the new Westlake subdivision is on the southern side of 17, about a mile east of where the Hartwood Elementary School is right now. So we are getting ready actually to put in the site plan on that this Friday. So the first set of plans will go into the county this Friday or Monday. We were talking about that today. This will again be build 3 of 4, opening in August of 2028. So again, we'll finish up those 3 new schools next summer, turn around, break ground on 2 more. Okay. Now what everybody's here for, the exciting part, the CIP process and what we go through as part of our capital improvement plan every year. I think it's important first for us just to talk about where the CIP sits within the overall budget, right? So when you think about Stafford School's budget, we have an operating budget. That's where obviously we're paying for our teachers and school bus drivers and making sure that we're doing all the day-to-day operations of the schools, the maintenance of the schools, paying the electric bills, all of those things. And then we have the other big portion of the budget, which is the capital improvement program, right? And so this is where we're spending a lot of big dollars on capital replacements or improvements throughout the division. We have 35 buildings throughout the division. They take a lot of work, not only in terms of regular maintenance, but in terms of replacements from time to time. And then obviously we're a growing community, right? So there's a lot of growth that happens that we have to accommodate. And so you can see that our CIP breaks out into 2 areas. The large capital projects, which again is all that new construction or replacement, right? Those are some of the schools I just highlighted. And then our 3R projects. 3R stands for repair, replacement, and renovation, right? So these are the types of projects we'll go in, do a replacement for some bleachers at one of the high schools, or come in and do some interior or mechanical replacements within a school building. Thinking about how we arrive at this CIP, there's a variety of inputs that come into this, right? You can see all the way over on the far left, the work order data, right? So that is the day-to-day information that we're pulling from our system to understand what's breaking, where are we maintaining things, and that all helps to inform our knowledge of what's going on in the system. We combine that with conversations with our maintenance personnel, of course, and then our construction personnel and our planning folks, as we talked about here earlier, Mr. White and Mr. Townsend. And then we'll sit down with leadership, school leadership, obviously the board, and other community members. We also have a CIP advisory committee. That's kind of where we get down to the community members over here as well. And that's also what we're here for tonight, right? We want to hear from the community what's important. What is it that you all see that we don't perhaps see, or what is it that you want to bring to the table as part of the discussion? And then all of those pieces and elements come together into the capital improvement plan process. It's important to remember that the CIP is a living document, right? So we do this every year, and every year we pick up things that maybe we didn't see the year before, or we change things from what we did the year before because we've learned more or something has changed within the dynamic of this process. But we're always, it's a 10-year plan, so there's a long-term portion to this that we're trying to see 5 to 10 years out. And then we have the more immediate things that are in the, right in front of us in that 2 to 3 to 4 year time span. And as you can imagine, as you get closer to a project, the scope refines, the prices refine, the timeline changes maybe a little bit, where you're going to put the building, the facility, that can all fluctuate. And so it's a dynamic process that we go through every year with the CIP. This slide, we went through a few times to kind of changing it back and forth, trying to think through what was the best way to put this up there, and we landed at a circle because it goes around and around. Every year, we go through the same process, and there's overlap in our process. So I'll start at the top here, the draft CIP, right? That is what Mr. Townsend and I bring to the school board and say, members of the board, this is what we believe is the best proposal for the capital improvement plan moving forward for this next year, right? And again, it's a 10-year process that we're looking out. So we say for this and the next 10 years. That goes to the school board. Ultimately, the school board looks to approve the CIP in the November timeframe, and then we start working with the Board of Supervisors across the street in January, right? So this will go from eventually here to the school board's approval and hopefully November, and then across the street in the December and January timeframe. And then around that same time, Mr. White wraps up his enrollment accommodation plan. Now, typically in October, we have an idea of where some of those numbers are coming in from the current year, student counts and so forth. But it's also at that time that Mr. Townsend and I sit down and say, okay, let's think about the next CIP, right? So we're in the middle of finishing up one CIP. It's over sitting down with the Board of Supervisors being debated, and they're trying to figure out what they can and can't fund. And we're already starting to think about what do we need to bring to the school board next July, right? So, and that's also inclusive of Mr. White's updated projections. So it's a cyclical cadence that we go through every year, and that creates some opportunities sometimes where we might see something during one process that we pick up on in the next process, and we say, oh man, we're a month or two late for that, but let's get it on the next round, right? So, but it continues to roll around and around. Again, here's where we are in this year's process. You can see we're here tonight, September 16th, CIP Town Hall. From here, we'll go to the school board's work session again at the end of the month, then another one in October, look for final approval in November, and then work with the Board of Supervisors. Okay, I want to spend a few minutes talking about, with this CIP, some of the major capital updates that we're making. Already talked about this a little bit again from last year, what the Board of Supervisors approved. Hartwood Elementary School, the rebuild, August 2028 opening, right? So we talked about that a little bit before. We're already in design, getting ready in anticipation of breaking ground on that in about a year from now. North Stafford High School, the Performing Arts Wing. This one, if you've looked at our CIP at all in the past 5-10 years, it has been on that CIP, and we've been talking about it for many years. So we're very excited that this one made it. And actually, I don't know if you all can't see all of it here, but over on the right there, I tried to include a little bit of the conceptual layout, the latest that we've been working on with the architect there. You can see, I don't know if you can see up at the top in the middle where it says orchestra, storage, and band. That looks like where the area that we would have the addition that we've been talking about there. And then some renovation. It's kind of hidden right now by the picture of me, but that area down below where a lot of the current band activities are ongoing is the discussion that that area would be renovated and expanded. Again, looking for an August 2028 completion on that. If you didn't notice, we have a lot happening over the next few years between all the new schools coming online and some of these activities. Middle School 9, it's hard to think about because we're in the middle of rebuilding Drew Middle School right now. But right now, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but the Board of Supervisors has approved it for an August 2038 completion. We've asked for a slightly different time frame, so we'll talk about that in a minute. But again, it's been approved. We're moving forward with it. We're starting to think about where to put it. So that's good. That's progress, right? We also added a few bus parking projects, one at Colonial Forge as well as one at Mountain View. I shared earlier that we were adding some bus parking at Falls Run Elementary, and that's much needed. But again, we're very behind right now on bus parking, so we're excited to have those projects approved as well. And then this has been a huge win for us the last few years. The 3R funding, again, you recall earlier I talked about replacement, renovate, those types of things for 3R. Historically, we've been in that $6 to $8 million area pretty consistently for many years. And that's really well welcomed. It really hasn't been enough, right? We really want to be, the need is more in that $22 to $25 million area just to keep industry standard. So last year we were approved for $17 million. We're very excited for that. And our plan this year is to hopefully be able to get a little bit more and get ourselves closer to and eventually to that industry standard. This was a huge step forward for us. We're very thankful that the Board of Supervisors partnered with us on that, and we continue to look forward to continued cooperation with them. A couple other things that were approved with the CIP last year. So you may have recalled, many of you I'm sure did, heard some of the issues we had up at Rodney Thompson Middle School a couple years ago. So that, for better or for worse, I think kind of helped people understand a little bit of the importance of maintaining our critical systems, right? When we're talking about critical systems, and I'll again refer to this a little more, these are the types of things, like not only our fire alarms and lockdown systems in the school, but the HVAC systems, right? The water, the electrical, the plumbing, a lot of the things that go on behind the walls and above the ceilings that tend to get forgotten. But if you lose your HVAC system, can't operate the school, or worse, somebody could get hurt if something happened. So it's very important to make sure that we're doing these. And our approach over the last few years has been to take these and be able to present them to the community as critical systems that really need to be maintained. So Rodney Thompson, Gale, Hampton Oaks, and Winding Creek were all approved in the CIP on the timeline shown there, 2028 through 2036. And you can see when we're talking about restoration, I've included a couple pictures over there to the right of Rock Hill Elementary School, an example of what we did this past summer, where what we're doing is we're going in, we're basically putting down new flooring, painting the walls, and replacing the tiles, right? So that's like the restoration part. We've already been through Rock Hill to replace the HVAC critical systems, and then we'll come through this with this restoration. But it's important that we do that. The carpet in Rock Hill, as an example, in many places was over 35 years old. And typical life cycle replacement on a carpet should be no more than 12 to 15 years, right? So when it gets beyond that, it can cause safety issues, health issues, some of those types of things. So although you might think, well, we're just replacing carpet, it's not a big deal, right? It is a big deal. The carpet, it has a lifespan, and this past summer, we kind of ran into a little bit of that. We dealt with a little mold in a few of our buildings, and it was largely due to areas of carpet that were pretty old, as well as some older HVAC systems, right? So if we don't do this work, it will eventually catch up with us, either in the health of the building or the long-term viability of that building. A couple other things that were changed. Mountain View High School, we were able to, this is some key changes that we are proposing in this year's CIP. Mountain View High School, we are proposing to add that to the large capital list, again, as one of those critical systems restoration projects. And this has been an ongoing move the last few years to pull some of those larger dollars out of the 3R list and put them onto the large capital list, where it can be managed a little bit better. We've also asking for some additional funds at Colonial Forge High School bus parking to add some fueling capacity to that. So right now we don't have fueling depots at various places of the county, and that one's kind of a critical area for us. So we've asked for about $1 million there to add that. And then we've made some adjustments to some of the 3R projects. Again, I talked about that cyclical process as we learn some more each year. We've also looked ahead a little bit at some of the elementary school rebuild projects. So this would be Grafton, Stafford Elementary, Falmouth, and Ferry Farm. We were previously asking for them in the 2034 timeframe. I think we've pushed that 1 year to 2035 because looking at those, we believe they can make it to that point. And then North Stafford High School, we've added an interior renovation that we're proposing to begin in FY31. So as we look at the CIP, and it's a big document, right? What are we trying to ask and focus folks in on this year as the community? A couple things, and we'll talk about each of these a little more in depth. Rising Star and the Rising Star replacement with the day school. I'll talk about that a little more in depth. But what's key here is the project timing and contingency planning around those existing programs and facilities that are being used there. Elementary School 20, the project timing on that, right? We have a slight difference between what the school board is looking at, what the Board of Supervisors is looking at. Same thing with Middle School 9, along with the location of Middle School 9. It may be 8 to 10 years out or 6 to 8 years out, depending. But again, we need to start planning for that now in terms of where's this building going to go and finding that land. And then the critical systems restoration projects and the 3R projects, again, maintaining the advocacy. That's something that can't really stop. We have to keep that going. So let's talk about each of these a little bit more in depth. So starting with Rising Star and the day school. Again, this facility, it's actually the oldest in our portfolio. Originally, portions of the building were built in 1931. The planned location for the replacement of the Rising Star and day school is to go combined onto the Drew Middle School site. So right now, our Melchers Complex facility that you see up there in the picture, that was the one built in 1931. That hosts the Rising Star students. The day school students are at the current Drew Middle School, which we talked about earlier is being replaced. Once that is replaced, those students would no longer really be able to stay in that building because maintaining that entire building for the 4 or 5 classrooms that are the day school becomes very difficult, right? So trying to figure out where to put these students and work through where to put these students in the interim as we ultimately work towards the new facility that is proposed at the Drew Middle School site. So you think about we're kind of swapping things around a little bit, moving pieces around, and trying to work through that. Again, you see that we don't have full alignment right now between the boards on the opening date. The school board has asked for it in 2030. Right now, the Board of Supervisors has approved it and funded it with a projected opening of 2032. So again, trying to align those timeframes and come to some consensus on that. The existing capacity of the day school, you see it takes 42 students, and the existing capacity of Rising Star is 435 students. We're looking to double the capacity of the day school, basically go up to 90 students, and then add about 140, 150 students to Rising Star. And that's based on growth of those programs and the opportunities that we see there to continue to serve the community. Okay. Elementary School 20, this would be the 4th of the 4 prototypes that we're under contract to design and construct. To design, I should say at this point. We don't have a construction contract on this one yet. The current planned location is for Embry Mill. Again, the big difference here that we're looking at is the alignment in the dates, August 2030 versus August 2034. And it's hard to see right now. Well, I guess you can't really see it with my picture up there, but what happens to what we call the chiclet chart, a lot of folks refer to it as the chiclet chart. In my picture there, you can't see it. There's a lot of red if we go much beyond that August 2030 date, right? We start to get into a lot of potential overcrowding in our elementary schools. And again, these are yearly projections, and we'll see where this year comes in. We'll take a look at that again and reevaluate and see where we're at. But right now, based on what we saw last year, we're saying you really need that school in 2030, or we're going to have some overcrowding issues again. Okay, Middle School 9. Right now, two things that we're really trying to work through and figure out with this CIP cycle. Where's it going to go? And when are we going to build it? So you can see, again, we've asked for it in 2032. The Board of Supervisors has said, well, we can fund it in 2038. Okay, let's talk about that. Let's figure out what that means. How do we get from now to that time? What is needed? When can it be funded? And then where are the gaps? How do we fill those gaps? What do we do? Right? So that's part of what we're going through right now with our board, is talking through some of that, trying to imagine and think a little bit and get collaborative about how that looks. And then also, where is it going to go, right? So we're putting Drew Middle School down in the southern part of the county. That's great, well needed. It fixes a lot of our capacity issues in that area of the county. But as you look ahead, you start to really see some of those capacity issues creeping up in the north as we move forward. I talked about this before. Again, it's important to hit on this again. The critical system restoration work really is important. It's critical. It's not something that can be optional, right? So building in and making sure that we're advocating every year to make sure that this becomes the norm, not the exception, but the norm, that we are putting money back into our buildings every single year to make sure that they're making it to full lifespan capacity. Otherwise, we might get to a shortened lifespan, and then you have a large capital dollar that you have to spend unexpectedly, oftentimes, in those out years. And again, I talked about this a little bit. Part of the reason I put this slide in here, not only to talk about the $17 million, again, great step forward. You can see how we're proposing it over the next 4 to 5 years to get to that $22 to $25 million number, right? So we're adding about $2 million a year. So we go from 17 to 19, all the way up to 23 million in FY30. And this, again, was being done to say, we understand that this ship can't turn around on a dime, but we have to start turning it, right? And we have to start getting to that industry standard. So that's what this plan, that's what our plan proposes. Okay. Let's talk a little more in depth about Rising Star, Gary Melcher's, Middle School 9, a couple of those things that I just touched on. Some of the challenges that we're looking at right now at Rising Star, right? I talked about this before. 1931 construction in parts of that building. A lot of it built in the 1960s. The reliability of the facility is really becoming an issue for us. We just had an instance last January. I spent, myself and a couple of us spent most of our Christmas break out at the Melchers complex working to replace the awnings, these awnings that were built in the 1960s that were starting to fail. And these, you have to remember, right, these are a littlest of littles running around there. These are giant concrete awnings. Not a good picture in our mind of what could potentially go wrong there. So we went out, we did it quickly, an emergency fashion. The Board of Supervisors was able to help us out with some funding on that. But at the end of the day, it was about $1 million of, I'll say, unplanned expenditure. Not unforeseen, right? There's a difference between seeing something and saying, hey, this is an issue, and then actually being able to budget for it. And the big issue we've had is being able to properly budget for that. We've seen a lot of these things over the years. We've talked about them. We have to figure out how to get ahead of them, right? But as we look at Rising Star and think about the population that we have there with those students, what is possible to get us to 2030, 2032, whatever time frame that new building comes online? Do we have other emergency repairs? Is it possible that the building, the HVAC systems could go down? So the board has expressed concern about this. We have concern about it. So we're looking at contingency options of what to do there. One of the things we thought about is, well, if we're going to rebuild Heartwood, we'll have the old Heartwood building, which is old, but it's newer than the Rising Star Melchers facility. Could we put some money into that to help us get along for a little while, right? So that's one thing we've thought about. We've also talked about relocation of the Rising Star group, right? Like, is there an opportunity if we were to have to break that back up and put it back at individual school sites? We've talked about that. But that has a lot of programmatic and operational impacts that have to be considered, right? It's not an easy thing. And you can see there I talked about modulars a little bit. And then, of course, there's always the option of putting money into the Melchers facility. But again, what's your return on investment there if that facility is really at or past the end of life? So these are some of the things that we're thinking through and working through right now as we're working on the CIP. Day school is kind of a similar situation, right? So day school, we have 4 classrooms at the Drew Middle School site. Once Drew Middle School opens its doors at the new facility, which is great, that'll be a great thing. What do we do with the day school students, right? So there's some options here. Ultimately, that building needs to come down. Right? The old Drew building needs to come down so that we can begin construction of the new facilities there. But there's some options there to what to do with those students, right? We've talked about potentially finding some space once we do the redistricting with the elementary and high schools coming next year. There'll be a little bit of space at Stafford High and Falmouth Elementary that maybe we could make something work for a few years as a bridge, right? We've talked about the day school even possibly going out to Hartwood. I didn't list that up here, but that has been something that's been in our mind before as we've looked at that. But again, all of these things have operational impacts too. Now, instead of having the efficiency of having, one coordinator for 4 classrooms at Drew, now that one coordinator is hopping back and forth between 2 sites, right? So those are all the different types of things that we have to think about as we're doing this. And also, obviously, making sure the space is appropriate for the children, right? Some of our day school students are elementary, some of them are in high school. So taking a high school student and putting them on an elementary campus or vice versa, that has questions, raises concerns for us about how do we handle that? How do we mitigate that, even if temporary? Hartwood Elementary. So I got this question the other day. I was meeting with some folks over at the county, and they're already asking, what are you going to do with the building? I don't know. We're working through that. What is the plan long-term for that building? There is still some life left in it. We know it's not suitable long-term for 400, 500, 600 elementary school students. We've had reliability issues there before in the past, right? But what do we look at doing with that building longer term? Does it get used, as we talked about, for some of this intermediate contingency space? It's got water and sewer capacity concerns out there, right? It's not public water and sewer out there, so that limits the options availability of what we can do with that site right now. But in the future, is it possible that water and sewer ends up out there? Do we look at maintaining that site at some point for a potential future option down the road, right? So these are all the different types of things that we're thinking about. And then middle school 9, talked about this a little bit earlier, trying to identify where the location of the middle school will be. And that, again, a lot of it comes down to the enrollment accommodation plan, right? Where's the students? Where's the growth at, right? We can clearly see that there's going to be a need in the north. But we also have to consider the operational issues that we currently have. If you look at our middle school districts right now, 3 of them go all the way to the Fauquier County line. And those are very long bus rides for those students, right? So thinking about, is there an opportunity to fix some of that with the location of middle school 9 is something that we're looking at. And then finally, modulars, modular classrooms. So we were very fortunate a few years ago to be able to, I say fortunate, out of necessity, we put up, we have 60 modular classrooms located at 10 of our elementary school sites. Well, so part of the question is now, what are we going to do with a number of these elementary schools? Some of them are leased, the 4 of them, so those will be able to be turned back over, but we own the remaining ones. And so taking a look at what can we do with these facilities? Do we simply remove them and sell them and take some of the funds back from that and try to reinvest it? Or do we look at some opportunities to use this as flex space during other renovations? Or are they better suited where they're at right now? We talked about Rising Star earlier again, or the day school, right? Does that give us some opportunity to do some shifting until we get to those new facilities, right? Okay, almost done. Hang in there with me. All right, so looking ahead here, couple things that we've been working towards the last few years. The facilities master plan, this is something, when I started here a few years ago, one of the first things I told Mr. Fulmer was, I think we need a facilities master plan. Something that'll guide us beyond just immediately what's in front of us year to year, or even in that 3 to 5 year window, something that looks 10 to 20 years out, right? How do we look further down the road and begin to try and align ourselves with what we're doing now and what that means 20 years from now? So we're working on that. We're very excited about that. Again, not there yet, but that's something that we're working through over the next couple of years. The CIP Advisory Committee has also been hard at work the last couple of years on what the board asked them to look at, which was how do we rank and score our 3R projects? So they've just brought some recommendations forward to the board a couple weeks ago. We're working with them on that. Very excited. I think some great work that group did, and very excited to begin trying to integrate that into our annual process. And then I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but trying to align our CIP, Capital Improvement Plan, and our EAP, the Enrollment Accommodation Plan, trying to align those timelines a little bit more every year so that we don't put out one plan and let's say October or November, and then by the time we get to February, we're like, oops, missed that. So we're pretty close there right now. We've made some good steps in that direction, and very excited for making some changes there. All right, questions? How are we doing on time? Good on time, okay. Sorry, I kind of got lost there. No, again, we did have 10 questions. You want me to walk through these?
Thank you, Jason. So I want to thank everybody for being here. Before the town hall started for the last week, as Dr. Smith had said, we requested online feedback. If anyone had a question, we got 30-something submissions in, about 16 were relevant, and of those 16, we pared them down into 10 questions that were responsive to those 16 themes. You may not hear your question read exactly as you had written it. If similar questions were submitted, they were combined into one question. For those of you that are watching us live, you can scan that QR code or visit that URL, and we'll take submissions throughout the rest of the evening as you've seen this come up. But we're going to start with those 10 questions that were submitted ahead of time. And that first question, how will the CIP address safety improvements in our schools, including security cameras, metal detectors, fencing, automatic locking doors, and emergency preparedness?
Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Zook. I'm the Director of Safety and Security for Stafford County Public Schools. And I just want to preface my comments by just saying in my role, and I know safety and security is near and dear to everybody, definitely in my heart. There are things that I can say and disclose, and there are things that I can't. So I'm going to keep this at a very high level. Obviously, I'm always concerned about what information we share, and we want to be as transparent as we possibly can be, but there's sometimes we don't want to do anything that's going to compromise the safety and security of our students and staff in our buildings. So I just wanted to preface that with that. Basically, and I'll keep it at a high level, we are based really basically on 4 basic tenets. Physical security of our buildings, so we are focused on hardening our facilities. That can include locks and include other things that I'm not going to get into for obvious reasons. But also, it also includes, we look at early threat identification, assessment, and mitigation are key tenets of our security plan. We take a layered approach to security. We include, not only that, we include emerging technologies. So we have deployed technologies in all our buildings to deal with emergency response. Recently, we developed the security operations, or built the security operations center, where we can respond, assess, and respond to emergencies that are going on to our buildings, work with law enforcement in real time. We've actually shared that capability with law enforcement as well, the 911 center, so they have the ability to see a lot of the things that we can see as well. And really to increase response time, and to actually help with response time. Really just the overall, as we approach safety and security within our buildings, emerging threats are things that we really want to deal with. What type of technologies can we leverage in our systems? We are looking at all sorts of things from additional camera analytics. There's a lot of analytics built into our camera software that we're looking to explore to figure out how best we can utilize that in our systems. We're looking at other emerging technologies like weapons detection and things like that, just to see where that might fit into our layered approach, a strategic approach to safety and security. So.
All right, our second question was, what are plans for renovating older schools like North Stafford High School, Stafford Elementary, and the administrative support buildings, and how will these projects be prioritized?
This guy again, right? Oh, here we go. No, great question, and I think I covered a little bit of that in in the presentation tonight, North Stafford High School is proposed for renovation starting in fiscal year 31. Stafford Elementary was actually renovated in 2013, and as I mentioned earlier, that is proposed for rebuild in 2034. And then we've also got the administrative support buildings. We do have some funds in there, like the exterior envelope in this building we're in here tonight needs a lot of work. The doors and windows, things of that nature. So there's work in there that's being planned. To the prioritization question, we do use a facility assessment process. Every 5 years, we go through a cyclical cycle at all of our schools. We send out a third-party team that looks at it, and they say, yep, these are all the deficiencies that we see. Here's a list of everything and how it should be replaced. We use that to help us prioritize those projects. Sure, I can. Okay, how will the district handle overcrowding and capacity issues, including redistricting, additional schools, and modular classrooms? Mr. White, feel free to jump in here at some point if you want, but I think I got it. So in a nutshell, and I mentioned this earlier, Mr. White does our annual enrollment accommodation plan, right? And so if you haven't seen his numbers before, they're always spot on. He does a really great job of projecting things looking forward. And then data from that obviously is used to not only take a look at how do we, anticipate overcrowding capacity, where those schools need to go, and then be planning ahead for redistricting. And if modulars are ever needed, right, we try to let those be a last resort, but those would also be able to come up through that EAP process. Okay. All right. How will the district ensure equity and improvements across all schools, including older facilities and schools with higher percentages of economically disadvantaged students? So again, I mentioned this before. We use that third-party facility condition assessment process on a cyclical basis, and then we use that data to help prioritize all of our projects. All facilities, regardless of age or condition, go through the same process on a cyclical basis. Okay, what funding sources are being used for the CIP, and how will the district minimize the impact on taxpayers? Great question. One that we take very seriously here. So Stafford Schools relies primarily on local funding from Stafford County. That often comes in the form of bonds, sometimes cash, for our facility capital improvements. But we work very closely, the school board and staff work very closely to ensure that our funding requests are fiscally responsible and that our scope, of course, is accurate. As I talked about earlier, it's a dynamic process. We're constantly refining scope, costs, timing, those types of things. I do want to take a moment and brag for a minute. Currently, collectively, the construction projects, Hartwood High School, Crow's Nest Elementary, and Falls Run Elementary collectively are $25 million under budget. So we do take that very seriously. We are very proud of the work we do here, and it is a constant responsibility that we take on. Are there contingency plans if certain projects like the Rising Star Special Education Day School do not receive full funding? I talked about that a little bit earlier. The answer is yes, and it's complicated. So we do have some contingency plans in place for that we've talked about in emergency situations. But again, to the question of if we don't receive full funding, right, I think in short, neither the Drew or the Gary Melchers complex in their current state are suitable for long term without some significant investment in them. So we would have to either make a decision on reinvesting into those facilities somehow, and or relocating or some sort of other approach with modulars potentially. Okay. How will the district schedule construction and renovations to minimize disruption to students and staff during the school year? Okay, so we try to do a lot of our construction in the summers, particularly when it's in the buildings, but that's not always possible. Right now, we're building an elementary school a few hundred feet from a high school, so we do take it seriously when we try to make sure we know when their testing days are and things of that nature, so that we're not, jackhammering something or bringing in heavy equipment during those times. So we work very closely with the building administrators on that, if we are in the environment when the kids are there or around, and then making sure that we're establishing parameters on the contractors' work schedule or the noise levels that they are allowed to have, and then just trying to phase it appropriately so as to minimize those disruptions. Okay. All right, will CIP projects consider future growth and enrollment projections to prevent repeated overcrowding or deferred maintenance? Yes, and it's complicated. So we do, as I talked about before, we do develop our projects in alignment with the enrollment accommodation plan. Right, so we're trying to obviously look to minimize overcrowding that may or may not come up in the facilities. And then we, again, as I mentioned before, we use the facility condition assessment process to prioritize deferred maintenance and to ultimately align those projects with the growth-related accommodation projects to try and maximize our efficiencies within that whole process. Okay. All right. What accountability measures will ensure that funds allocated for maintenance and capital improvements are used efficiently and effectively? So first and foremost, we go through an annual audit process, right? So that all the finances for the division goes through a process. Mr. Fulmer, previous life, did that for a living. He's honest. He makes sure that we're always above board with everything. He does a great work there. We also have a very strong procurement team that helps make sure that everything we're doing in terms of our contracts and purchasing is all done in alignment with the Virginia Public Procurement Act. We work very effectively with them. And then each year, of course, we're bringing those maintenance and capital budgets to our board and to the community saying, this is what we see, this is what we think we need, what say you? And ultimately, I'm trying to make sure we go through that process to use all of those funds effectively and efficiently. And then ultimately, we do put out regular reports on all of our projects. We also give quarterly updates to our Finance Audit and Budget Committee on our construction progress. So we try to keep all that information out there for everybody to see. And of course, if you have a question, just call us. We're happy to sit down and talk. All right, and this is our last question. So how will community input, including parents, students, and staff, be incorporated into the CIP planning beyond this town hall? Of course, we encourage, love, welcome all the participation from community members, encourage everybody to remain engaged. As I mentioned earlier, we have a couple upcoming work sessions with the board. Ultimately, we'll be working with the Board of Supervisors early next year. Would love to see folks come out and engage in that. And then we have a CIP advisory committee. The chair of the CIP advisory committee is here tonight, Ms. Molly Denham. Thank you, Molly. And so if you have interest, our vice chair is back there too. So if you have interest in being involved, let us know. We love to have community involvement. So that's it.
Right, and with that, we did not get a single question from our online audience. So if you have any questions, we're going to turn this back over to Dr. Smith to close us up for the evening. Our school board members, our CIP advisory committee members will be here for the rest of the evening. They're happy to stick around and take any further questions.
All right, thank you. There we go, almost an hour. So we do have a few more minutes if folks have questions. Otherwise, I will share, we'll stick around for folks that might have individual questions that might want to have conversations. We do have many of our board members here tonight, but I don't know, is there any questions for me or the group? All right. Well, really appreciate you spending your evening with us. Thanks for the time. Let us know. Feel free to catch up with us if you have any individual questions, and I hope you have a safe ride home. Thank you.